Hi guys, tell me, what deep secret are you taking to the grave? Story number 1. I had a sweet, wonderful student who had been in foster care, but his mom worked her ass off to get him back and she did. He had to take a very important state exam. I have no idea why I wrote city exam, and she called me and asked if he passed it. I looked at the grades and saw he did and said so. She burst into tears of joy, and that is when I saw I had read the wrong score. He had failed. So I changed his grade to passing. No one knew. That was the only time I ever did that. That could have cost me my license. The weird thing is, when my awful corrupt principal pressured me to change other students' scores so we could raise our pass rate, I refused. I never told anyone what I did for my student. He went into the military, was extremely successful there, has a great wife and kids, so I think I did the right thing. Fuck those tests. They aren't human. Story number 2. I attempted to murder my mother. She was abusive, verbally but also physically. She'd hit you in places no one would see, or rip clumps of my hair out when Dad was on the road for work. She probably has a personality disorder. She got in my face one night when I was coming home from my second job, and I had it. My mom went through whole periods where she wouldn't work. I was killing myself every summer working 50+ hours to pay family bills in my parents' names and also get my younger sister to all of her activities. I had it. I tried to put Mom's head through a wall. She started screaming, "Oh, help! Help!" And I told her she could dish it out. She should also be able to take it, shoved her on the ground and kicked her repeatedly in the abdomen and thigh, while still trying to put her head through the wall with one hand. It's a plaster and lath situation, old house in New England. I really fucked her up, and it felt good to do so. She's destroyed so many people's lives and she never faces any consequences for it. No one in our family ever helped me or called the police when she would abuse me. The only one who ever helped was the dog. If the dog was awake when my mom tried to start something, she'd get between us, growl at Mom, until she backed down. I had always shown restraint and never hit her until this night. But my dad did call the cops on me when I crossed that line. The cops get there, split us up to interview. I explained my side and then just blurt out, "Where were you assholes when I was 8 and she was doing that to me?" The cop was taken aback. I think he could tell I was being honest, and it was a culmination of years of shit and pain. He goes and talks to his partner. "I think this isn't an assault, I think it's a mental illness thing." Then they basically intimidated my mom and dad into agreeing with them. They wouldn't let it go until they agreed it was a medical issue, not a criminal one. So they called an ambulance and I went to the hospital as part of a diversion program. Basically, they sent me to detox for 3 days, and I emerged with no record, no charges, no nothing except a script for Prozac and a recommendation for therapy, paid for by the state low-income insurance plan. Trying to kill my mom probably saved my life, honestly, because I got myself some tools from a CBT/DBT therapist, but I'm not stupid enough to want people to know. Who would date me? How would I ever get promoted at work? Anyway, be kind. You never know what someone's been through, and you never know what people are capable of when pushed far enough. Story number 3. Once when I was 13, I went a week and a half without pooping. I was on a camping trip and something must have happened with the drinking water. My digestion. Took laxatives. Nothing worked. My stomach was killing me, but nothing would come out. Then one evening after dinner, I felt it coming. I knew this was it. I bolted for the bathhouse, mentally preparing for the epic event. When I finally waddled in, the stalls were all occupied. At this point, I'm freaking out. I'm literally going to shit my pants and in the woods with no means of cleaning. I waddle to the private shower attached to the bathrooms, and my desperate mind starts solving problems like I'm Bradley Cooper in Limitless. Initially, I think to just shit on the shower drain and waffle stomp it through. But I was not going to be that guy who ruined the nicest shower in the woods for everyone. Like a bolt of lightning, I knew what I had to do. So I pooped in the only piece of clothing I could spare, my sock. Obviously, my stomach was doing better now, and I was hugely relieved. I brought the poop sock to the dumpster nearby, and one of my friends saw me on the way. Before I could dispose of the poop sock, he strikes up a conversation and starts asking questions about what I'm doing. Internally, I'm panicking. The best excuse I could come up with was that I found a sock in the shower, stuffed with mud, so I thought it best to throw it away. My friend affirms how good of a guy I am for doing that. I throw the poop sock into the dumpster, and my problems are finally over. Mud in a sock is a ridiculous story, but there's absolutely no way he could have guessed that the real situation was much, much more bizarre. I've never told a soul about this until now. Never will again. Story number 4. When I was an awkward tween, my brothers and I spent a lot of time at my grandparents' house. We had been raised by my grandparents since we were little kids, and even after my dad remarried, he and my stepmom both worked graveyard shifts, so we would spend the night at my grandparents' house while my parents were at work. One day, my grandmother informed me that it was my grandfather's birthday and suggested that I wish him a happy birthday. He was downstairs in the living room sitting on the sofa, and I went up to him and gave him a big hug around the neck and said, "Happy birthday, Grandpa." It was kind of difficult to hug a person sitting down, so I ended up kneeling on the sofa between his legs rather than trying to hug him from a standing position. He was quite happy and gave me a hug back. When I pulled back from the hug, he held me in his arms and gave me a big smile. And then he put his tongue in my mouth. Sometimes when I was a little kid, we would kiss other family members on the mouth, but those were chaste pecks on the lips. I could tell immediately that this was different. His tongue was on my teeth. It lasted only for a moment, and I was grossed out and confused when I pulled away. At that moment, my grandmother walked into the living room. I turned my head to look at her. My hands were still on my grandpa's shoulders. She seemed really happy that I had wished my grandfather a happy birthday like a good little kid. I gave him a final quick hug and scrammed out of the room. For the rest of my tween and teen years, I was always careful not to be alone in the same room with my grandfather. He passed away during my 20s, a good decade ahead of his time due to lifestyle-induced health issues, and my family chose me to speak at his funeral. I had really complicated feelings about it because I did love him. My grandma and grandpa raised me after all. Also, my grandfather was the rock of the family, and after he passed away, the 3 branches, my dad and our family, plus his siblings and their families, gradually grew apart, and nothing was ever the same between us again. We don't even spend Christmas all together anymore. I've never told anyone in my family about it because I couldn't break my grandmother's heart. She's survived her husband 10 years and still talks to and about him every day and visits his grave multiple times a week.